Okay, are we finally watching the dark Gothic Maga video? Bro, defend him a little bit. You don't think it's that big a deal, right? The reality is we're all growing as human beings. And we all have our journeys. And we're all on a journey, constantly, together. I should have never, I shouldn't have let all of this become public in the way that I did. That was a huge mistake on my end. I think I f***ed that up really hardcore, which in a way f***ed over forethought pretty hardcore, which actually isn't cool. I should have controlled the start of this better, but that's on me. It's all a learning experience. How for all of this? I should have never let Dan gas up Kelly to come on and like be his like little proxy warrior with forethought, because Dan was ass pained over the moderating. That was a big mistake on my part, because I kind of let them get like narrative control first over everything, and then from there it just is kind of like a cluster where I was like watching everything unfold. But like once they've said their piece, it's kind of hard to tell people to put it back in the box. But I probably should have not goaded that on initially. So yeah, fuck, it was hilarious though. That's true. It was content indeed. Did you say you handled removing all the permissions for people properly? Yeah, I think so. I think I depermed everybody on platforms that they didn't have a direct control over, which I probably should have just done a while ago. So, Jesus Christ. Just kidding. Okay. Do you see the Mogul Mel on the Apocalypse? No. We might watch that after this if we have time. Was it this? Did this fight suck? Oh no, what is happening to Twitch? 17 minutes? Maybe.
That's
maybe.
right.
We'll
Another
see.
Mogul.
All right. Good luck.
Crypto era.
The future is gonna be.
So I felt like a boot off the throat. Like every morning I wake up happier than the day before, because all of these forms of repression that I just had gotten used to.
Hallelujah.
Disappeared so far up their own woke asses. If those people stay in control, I think that the Republicans could have an electoral majority as far as the eye can see.
It's really the dawn of a new crypto era.
The future is gonna be amazing.
More than any other sector, the tech industry invested in this election. Crypto accounts for more than half the corporate spend, with no other industry coming close. It's not unusual for industry to use their money to buy in. Crypto accounts for more than
2024, crypto corporations poured over $119 million directly into influencing federal elections, primarily in a non-partisan super PAC dedicated to electing pro-crypto candidates, defeating crypto skeptics. Dominant corporate. I wonder what a crypto corporation counts as.
half the corporate spend, with no other industry coming close. It's not unusual for industry to use their money to buy influence, and at a superficial glance, that's all the tech VC world wants. They want lower taxes and friendly regulation. They want the head of the Federal Trade Commission out. They want the tech industry to be responsive to the Future Commodities Trading Commission, not the Securities Exchange Commission. Except that's not all they want. Behind the money and influence flowing into the Trump campaign are a set of bizarre beliefs and a dark agenda.
I'm not just MAGA. I'm dark, Gothic MAGA.
You see, the tech bros of
He's so fucking cringe. Holy shit.
Silicon Valley believe that the American empire is on the verge of collapse. Silicon Valley wants to speed this up, but use the coming administration to create safe landing zones for them and their cash, where they can also run their own governments. And what is so annoying about this is it makes me sound crazy. It makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist. But I'm talking about crazy people. I am talking about the guy who wants to colonize Mars. I am talking about the guy who said he gave up on democracy in 2009. These tech bros justify their point of view because they believe that that's their natural place in society.
Wait, hold on. Is a silly series the same or different? Oh, I see a girl who described herself as Batman confronting someone on a public bus. That's a totally different, completely unrelated, insanely crazy Australian person, but not at all related to this person.
Courageous geniuses on the new frontier. I'm not speculating. These men say it. They say it on podcasts and at conferences and in interviews and in blog posts. Some are quiet, some are very, very loud, but they all are on board.
And I think that if we want to increase freedom, we want to increase the number of countries.
If you want to replace the elite that you have today, what you need to do is you need to have a better elite. And there's a way to do this. It's been done before.
We get kind of money and property right, and that it's a strong foundation for building
kind of a world that we all want to live in. We're seeing, some, breakdown of those in the real world in the United States lately.
I'm definitely very interested in ways that you can sort of tokenize real estate and actual physical land to create better forms of society and governance. I do think America is in slow decline right now. I would like us to all in crypto think about how we actually go create physical places in the world to preserve freedom over the long term. I think that's ultimately crypto's destiny.
The people of Mars will be more enlightened and will not fight amongst each other too much.
It's basically tech libertarian futurism, an ideology around technology, and including technology enhancing human freedom.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if we're going to get through this video. What Elon Musk video does that come from? Elon Musk talking about Martians. Is it this? Oh, is it this here?
Okay, let's end on something positive. You're shooting for Mars. What do you think that's doing for people? Because it's kind of, I don't want to step out of my box here, but it's really interesting to me to watch you do this because it's preposterous, right? It's a preposterous thing to do, to go to Mars.
Yeah.
And yet, I was old enough when the moon landing was happening to remember what that was like, right? It was an adventure, positive adventure, everybody could participate in. It was an unbelievable technological accelerant, and it was a mark of faith in the West, I would say, right? In the might of the United States and the upward aim. And so I know you're playing, I don't mean in the game-like manner. That's what you're tapping into. What do you think you're doing with the Mars venture?
Well, the Mars venture, I think, is part of the expansion of consciousness beyond Earth. So,
Yep.
I want to be clear that I don't think we should apply some vast amount of resources to Mars. I'm talking about less than 1% of our economic output should go to making life multiplanetary.
I like how he just offhandedly says that. Less than 1% of what? Less than 1% of GDP? Or what is he? GDP of the United States, so we should 300 billion. Are we saying less than 360 billion a year? Like, what is, I like how he just casually says that. Like, what do we mean less than 1% of economic output? Or does he mean worldwide or whatever?
But it is a natural extension of expanding the scope and scale of consciousness. So I think we want to do everything we can to make sure that Earth is going to be great for a long time, as long as possible, but also allocate a small amount of resources, like I said, less than 1% of our economy, to extending life beyond Earth, and ultimately to other star systems.
Right, and so that's perfectly in keeping with what you described at the beginning.
I don't like this random thing. A lot of people use these things now, and I don't know if somebody told me it was cool. I just don't like the moving camera for podcasts. I don't think it's cinematic. I don't think it adds anything of value. I think it's distracting, and I don't like it. I really don't like it.
The star systems.
Right, and so that's perfectly in keeping with what you described at the beginning of our discussion about the manner in which you resolved your crisis of faith as a child, your commitment to the validity of consciousness, your desire to, what would you say, facilitate its transformation, development, extension. That goes along with your pro-human ethos, right? So that's all thinking from first principles.
Yeah.
So I think you are stuck in the religious camp one way or another. So,
like I said, you can call it, I don't mind it being called a religion, but I think...
yeah, well, I came here at least in part today to find out just what the hell your religion was. So I want to end with this, if you don't mind. So I also asked you why you trust yourself in relationship to AI, and you said, well, I don't entirely, and so I thought that's a good answer. But I mean, more broadly, like, you have a lot of admirers. There's a lot of people who are hoping that you're the guy that you, what would you say? That you're the guy who can do what you say you're going to do. And there's lots of evidence that you can. It's like, you think it's reasonable for people to trust you?
Well, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't say trust me entirely, but I think on balance, my track record suggests that I'm fairly trustworthy.
What elements of it do you think suggest that particularly?
Well, I've built a lot of companies that have done useful things.
Yeah, you've built a lot of impossible companies that have done useful things.
Yeah.
Right. So that's an existence proof of sorts.
Yeah, and
do you accept the validity of entrepreneurial striving as an indicator of ethical conduct? Which I think that's valid.
Really? Hold on. Do you understand what he's saying, right? He uses a lot of big words. Hold on. Listen to what he just said.
The validity of entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Right. So that's an existence proof of sorts.
I'm sorry. I'll slow this down. He talks a lot of big words to mask some of the dumb shit that he says.
Yeah.
Do you accept the validity that the entrepreneurial spirit or entrepreneurial success is an indicator of moral character? So basically, if you're good at starting small businesses, does that mean you have upstanding moral character? That's basically what he just said.
Do you accept the validity of entrepreneurial striving as an indicator of ethical conduct? Which I think that's valid.
Wow, what an insanely crazy, stupid, naive, foolish. What? People that start small businesses and strive to make small businesses are ethically better people? That could be true. It could not be true. I don't think they're what a dumb statement to make, in my opinion. But at least use a lot of big words in making it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to recruit great people to work with me to build these companies. I think if I was like a really bad person, they wouldn't want to work with me. I think like one of the tests for
I hate, bro. Oh my God. If I was like, don't these guys think that the atomic bombs were bad? How did the United States get people to work on the Manhattan Project? Or what about for Big Pharma? How did they get talented scientists to work on mRNA vaccines? Like, aren't these evil things in their eyes? How did they get smart people to work on these projects? Or I don't know. Don't care.
Or, assessing someone's character is to look at the character of their friends and their associates.
Yep.
Like Donald Trump.
And while people can put up a mask themselves for their character, their friends and associates will not.
Yep.
And so you can judge a person's character by their friends and associates, and to some degree by their enemies.
Right.
If evil people hate you, well, you might be doing something right.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Fuck.
What if Mars?
I just wanted to hear this quote of him saying that, like, the people who colonize Mars will be an enlightened people that will never fight with each other. I just went, what? This is funny, also now relevant, right? As we went over our Federalist Papers, right? And rightfully predicted, I think, the Founding Fathers said that any group of people, any group of men that live near each other, that aren't united by one government, will always have conflict with one another. They will always fight with one another. People near neighbors are the most predisposed to fight. And that's true literally of all of human history. But I guess Martians will be beyond that.
For freedom over the long term, I think that's ultimately crypto's destiny.
The people of Mars will be more enlightened and will not fight amongst each other too much.
It's basically
true. Absolutely true.
Tech libertarian futurism, an ideology around technology, and including technology enhancing human freedom.
I am trying to fix government in the U.S. The point was like, let's have a new government.
Where do we sort of go from the wisdom of crowds to the madness of crowds? We're far too far on the side that you can describe as collectivist, centralized, Borg-like, conformist, and also generally just simply incorrect.
I think that what Elon's doing is showing a path to fighting back. The left-wing elite's going to be kicking and screaming the whole way.
Mark Cuban, one of the more normal billionaires, had this to say about this particular group of men that I'm talking about.
What's happened in Silicon Valley is insane.
Right.
It's not so much a support thing, it's more like a takeover thing. Trying to put themselves in a position to have as much control as possible. They want Trump to be the CEO of the United States of America, and they want to be the board of directors that makes him listen to them.
Now, this hypothetical board includes a couple of power players that I think are worth keeping an eye on. Namely, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Brian Armstrong, Mark Andreessen, Ben Horowitz, and David Sachs. In this
Bro, we got some crazy inhuman head shapes here. What the fuck? I'm sorry, it's kind of mean, but like, what?
Brian Armstrong, Mark Andreessen, Ben Horowitz, and David Sachs. In this video, I'm going to try and lay out what I think these people are doing behind the scenes. If you do want to dive further into this topic, I recommend looking at the work of Gilderon. I have linked his blog below. This is his beat, and he's amazing at it. This man is named Balaji Srivastava. Like Beyonce, he tends to only go by his first name. Balaji is highly involved in the tech scene, and while not a billionaire himself, he is friends with a lot of them. He's a former partner of Andreessen Horowitz. He is the
It feels like the tech community has become full of technocratic authoritarians with the idea that technology will solve the problems that democracy and government are trying to solve now. Yeah, but the issue is that, like, I guess it feels stupid because, like, when I would argue against technocracies in the past, usually my argument is, well, different people from different classes might not represent other classes as well, and there could be other problems, right? That's like what I would say. And I feel like that's your best faith attack against technocracies, is that you don't have a good stratification of, like, all of society represented in a technocracy, which might be bad. There's also like a boring challenge to technocracy, but that seems like the boring challenge. And the boring challenge is just because you're a technocrat and you know a lot of science doesn't mean you know fuck all about literally anything else. And you might say like, well, okay, come on. Like, if they're really smart people, they probably know more than at least the average person, right? But like listening to some of these crypto tech people like venture anywhere outside of crypto is like, it's like hearing the most retarded hearing Elon Musk talk about, honestly, even talking about AI is cringe, but listening to him talk about like ethics or philosophy in general, anything to do with like government, it's like, oh my God, technocracy? This is like a Down syndromocracy. This is the dumbest, most like self-masturbatory circle jerkulation I have ever heard in my entire, like it sounds like a bunch of 17-year-olds that just finished their first Ayn Rand short story who are like, oh my God, hello, anybody else find the solution to society with me? Hello? Objectivism, hello, libertarianism, hello, yeah. I say that. I just pulled that from my mind half jokingly, but like 95% of these people are all like, oh, also we need to abolish the Fed and go back to the gold standard and have like less government interference and everything. Like, oh my God.
the former CTO of Brian Armstrong's Coinbase. Thiel actually recommended Balaji to be the head of the FDA during the first Trump administration. Balaji wrote a book. It's called The Network State: How to Start Your Own Country. In that book, he talks about how to break nation states apart into smaller territories, which can then be run like corporations.
What I mean by Silicon Valley's ultimate exit. It basically means build an opt-in society, ultimately outside the US, run by technology. And this is actually where the Valley is going.
You see, like many in the industry, Balaji is a disruptor. He is interested in disrupting the current idea of nationhood through the creation of a network of sovereign, tech-run territories protected by military-grade security. Balaji wasn't the first person to come up with this idea, not even in the tech scene, but he was the first person to present it in a more palatable way. The idea actually comes from someone named Curtis Yarvin. In Patchwork, Yarvin wrote, "The basic idea of patchwork is that as the crappy governments we inherited from history are smashed, they should be replaced by a global spiderweb of tens, even hundreds of thousands of sovereign and independent mini-countries, each governed by its own joint stock corporation, without regard to the residents' opinions."
Okay, I haven't read this entire book, obviously, so my commentary here will be superficial, but my God, does this not sound like the intro to every single cyberpunk, dystopian, post-apocalyptic fucking movie ever?
Patchwork is a reboot of the current system in order to install a new operating system. Yes, Yarvin is a software developer with a company named Urbit, invested in by Peter Thiel. He refers to these small territories as patches, but he's flexible about how they might run, maybe like a corporate urban space or a city-state like Athens. These corporate dictatorships would use all-seeing surveillance to protect their citizens and enforce their laws. There would be biometric IDs. If you're poor, you will have to move to another patch. Or the poor could be ground up and used as biodiesel, or locked into a virtual reality prison.
Since sports are liabilities, there's no business case for retaining them in the present ambulatory form. Therefore, the most profitable disposition for this dubious form of capital is to convert them into biodiesel, which can help power the Mooney bases. Or buses, I'm sorry. Okay, just kidding. However, it helps us describe the problem we're trying to solve. Our goal, in short, is a humane alternative to genocide. That is, the ideal solution achieves the same result as mass murder, but without any of the moral stigma. Joanna is usually pretty good about not misquoting things or like integrating the material. So I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume that this is like a fair summary and integration of his ideas and thoughts into here. So we'll just keep going.
Now, Yarvin said he was joking about the biodiesel thing, but not about the prison thing. So I'm not sure if he was joking about the biodiesel, which gives us an understanding of why Balaji had to come up with a more appealing way to present this idea. Balaji has less about dictatorship and mass incarceration and more about freedom and opportunity. A lot of people in the industry acknowledge that Balaji's ideas are a little out there.
This is Balaji.
Yeah, this is Balaji.
And I would dismiss them too if those same people weren't actively funding them. Millions of dollars are being funneled into these projects as we speak. This is the website for Praxis, a network state funded by Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Balaji, and Sam Altman, through their shared capital fund, Pronomus, which is dedicated to funding the creation of network cities. The website for Praxis says, as local communities dissolve and nations...
This looks like SimCity 2000. What are these? Where do these pictures come from? Where do they get these from? Jesus. Isn't it Dubai? Oh, fuck. Is this Dubai? I have no idea. Maybe it is. Maybe it's Singapore. I don't know. Fuck.
Funding the creation of network cities.
Just kidding. Ignore me then.
The website for Praxis says, as local communities dissolve and nation states stumble, network states will ascend. The next global superpower will be a network state. The next America will be on-chain. The stated goal of Praxis is to build a corporate government with a global footprint. It will have...
I always thought technocracy meant states being elite, or meant state being elite in the field they are running, like health ministry being run by the best doctor in the country, etc. Yeah, but like even what that means is like the best doctor isn't necessarily going to be the best administrator. Just like the best teacher might not be the best superintendent or principal, or the best software engineer might not be the best CEO of a software engineering company, or the best plumber might not be the best guy to like that. There are different skill sets required for leadership and administration than there is, and management than there is for like doing a thing itself. But
have territories all over the world. Crypto will be its currency. The modern global system, once the greatest power in the history of man, has become a brittle, jerry-rigged contraption incapable of carrying out the most basic functions. As these governing institutions continue to degrade, people will come to realize that no one is truly on their side. As nation states falter, network states become inevitable. I should mention that Pronomus Capital is funding the creation of other network states, many of which are further along than Praxis. Some examples are Prospera in Honduras, Afropolitan, Etana, and small farm cities in Africa, Metropolis in Palau, and I think Young Drunk City is planned for South Asia. On Pronomus' website, they claim, decades of research on economic development has shown that the primary determinant of prosperity is the quality of a country's laws and the integrity of its courts, administrators, and other legal institutions. When institutions are outmoded, corrupted, or failing, the result is untold human suffering. Yet upgrading national institutions is notoriously difficult. Our solution? Build the cities of tomorrow. Right now, they are creating cloud communities, virtual nations. Once they have access to land, they will get their citizens to migrate to that city. Have a look at the pledge that you sign when you join Praxis, which you can join right now, by the way. Pronomus is...
Bro, why don't we have a DGG city being built? What the fuck?
To migrate to that city. Have a look at the pledge that you...
I pledge to embody our spirit of transcendence through heroic actions and thought. I commit to the creation of our new nation and our future city where our ideals and values will flourish. I pledge my time, resources, and energy to make this vision real. Damn.
Sign when you join Praxis, which you can join right now, by the way. Pronomis isn't actually Peter Thiel's first flirtation with exiting democracy either. In 2009, he funded the Seasteading Institute.
I want to say some things on why I think seasteading is not just possible or desirable, but why it is actually necessary.
The Seasteading Institute envisioned building these floating cities in the ocean outside of government's jurisdiction where billionaires could live and create as they saw fit. This idea kind of ran out of steam because nobody wants to live at sea, especially not billionaires, which means...
I would. A floating sea city? That sounds base as fuck. Sign me the fuck up.
They need land. But how do we get from a nation state to a network state?
And this is actually related to a fundamental concept in political science, the concept of voice versus exit. If a company or a country is in decline, you can try voice or you can try exit. Voice is basically changing the system from within, whereas exit is leaving to create a new system, a new startup, or to join a competitor sometimes.
There's another way that Balaji also talks about how this could possibly happen. He calls it tech Zionism.
Right. You know, what I'm really calling for is something like tech Zionism, a movement supported by a global network to take back territory in the city, floor by floor, street by street, block by block, policeman by policeman. You have a foothold of private property, and you have a group membership of Great Tribe membership and private property. You also issue T-shirts. The tribal lens is like a virtual reality filter. Every
Not the T-shirts.
single thing can be tagged as gray or blue in the city. I mean, like literally. So gray is the future, red is the past, blue is the present. So blue stands against both the past and the future. They're against both the self-driving cars, and they don't want to go back to the 50s. They prefer OnlyFans, Me Too, BLM, Ukraine. The hard part is to take control of the streets. How can you fence off a street and make clear that it's under gray control? Take total control of your neighborhood, push out all blues, tell them they're as unwelcome as just as blues ethnically cleanse me out of San Francisco. Like, push out all blues who has lost some territory in the cloud. They still control the land. Once gray starts taking back control of the land, they're really going to howl. As they start losing, they're going to whistle for backup from California and eventually DC. Okay? They're going to try to get executive orders or things like that, which means you're going to need to have sympathizers at the level of California and DC who will side with you enough to block those actions, number one. And or number two, you actually get to the level of a sanctuary city and you say, I dare you.
Keep in mind, actions like this are already being attempted in places like Solano County, where they're trying to build California forever, or the actions that Gary Tan is taking in San Francisco. But the people in these areas are putting up a fight, and it's costly, and it's slowing everything down. Fortunately, Trump is talking about something called freedom cities, the creation of new cities on federal land.
Almost 1/3 of the landmass of the United States is owned by the federal government, with just a very, very small portion of that land, just a fraction, 1/2 of 1%. Would you believe that? We should hold a contest to charter up to 10 new cities and award them to the best proposals for development. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination.
I wonder where he got that idea. This is where J.D. Vance comes in. J.D. Vance is seen as a mild-mannered, well-spoken success story, a populist who was born into tough circumstances in Appalachia, but managed to pull himself up by his bootstraps, graduate from Yale Law, become a best-selling author, become a tech venture capitalist, only to give all of that up for public service. When he was officially tapped on the shoulder for the vice presidential nomination, many of his former colleagues celebrated. Elon Musk, David Sachs, Mark Andreessen, and Balaji all tweeted their congratulations. After all, it was a strange choice for Donald Trump, especially compared to Mike Pence. But when it comes to J.D. Vance, a lot of people make strange choices. Peter Thiel invested $15 million in his campaign to become senator, the largest single donation to a Senate campaign in history. J.D. Vance is an extension of Peter Thiel. That doesn't mean that he is beholden to him, but it does mean that Peter Thiel has had such a huge influence on J.D. Vance's life that you cannot understand him without first understanding who Peter Thiel is.
I'm Peter Thiel. I build companies and I support people who are building new things.
I would say Peter Thiel is the most honest representation of what Silicon Valley is today. Worth up to $9 billion, extremely well connected. He started off as a member of the PayPal mafia, the guys who invented PayPal, and they originally intended for that to be a libertarian alternative to the US dollar. When it wasn't that and they sold out, he used the money that he made from PayPal to invest in other companies, including being the first outside investor in Facebook. And today he has invested in a huge portion of the tech industry, including companies like Sam Altman's OpenAI. He's also a big deal.
That's a minor point that she just brought up, but it is true. That people think that like Elon Musk co-founded PayPal is in its modern form. That's not true. Elon Musk exited before PayPal even became really what it was today, which is like a kind of money holder, kind of mainly like payment processor. Before they envisioned like PayPal to be this like bank that was going to challenge like the fucking existing banking systems of the US to be like a whole, it was a different concept, but just as a random fuck Elon Musk.
Deal in the tech defense sector. He owns Palantir, which is a surveillance software that is basically omnipresent in the US government. It's used by the CIA, FBI, ICE, Homeland Security, various police forces. Palantir is also used by private companies such as Cambridge Analytica. In 2009, Thiel wrote a manifesto called The Education of a Libertarian. In this manifesto, he disavows electoral politics and democracy because he doesn't trust the people with big decisions, and he's come to believe that democracy and freedom are inherently incompatible. Over time, he has talked extensively.
I not only believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. By tracing out the development of my thinking, I hope to frame some of the challenges faced by all classical liberals today. I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. Like, again, oh fuck, I don't want to do the thing where I started reading these for a reason, because I have read some of them as a result of like looking up Supreme Court things. So I'm not trying to say like, because I've just read some of these federal papers, not even a few, that like everything is about these, but like there are smart men in history that have thought about this. Like I hope to frame some of these challenges faced by all classical liberals today. Like, oh my God, freedom and democracy might not be compatible. Yeah, no fucking shit. Like every single part of the founding of the federal government and how that would work with the state governments in the United States was trying to balance that simple thing. The idea that the majority of men might represent a tyranny, that a minority of men, could represent a tyranny. Like this is like people have heavily considered this in the past. But without like obviously doing huge quotes, but like by a faction, I understand a number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or a minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest, adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community. This has always been the case. This is not like a new phenomenon that we need like these new brilliant crypto retard thinkers to pontificate on. Okay, this is stuff that people in the past have heavily considered, obviously, and other like people that study political science or historical political science, or like, yes, I hate to say this, it sounds crazy, like pick up a book.
Big decisions, and he's come to believe that democracy and freedom are inherently incompatible. Over time, he has talked extensively about finding areas where great men can make choices as they see fit, unbridled by the law. Thiel gave the Trump campaign $1.25 million.
What Trump represents isn't crazy, and it's not going away. He points toward a new Republican Party. He points even beyond the remaking of one party to a new American politics.
And in return, he got an office in the Trump Tower where he had the president's ear and suggested candidates for his administration. Some of his selections didn't make the cut, like Balaji, but some did. Michael Kratsios was put in as the Chief Technology Officer of the United States of America, a position I did not know existed, and Michael Anton was put on the National Security Council. Michael Anton wrote a very concerning essay called The Flight 93 Election, which I have linked below, and it is very enlightening about who Peter Thiel thinks belongs on the National Security Council. And remember Curtis Yarvin, who we were talking about before? He is often referred to as Thiel's in-house philosopher. Thiel has not only invested in a number of Yarvin's businesses, but he keeps Yarvin in his inner circle. Yarvin watched the 2016 election from Peter Thiel's house, where they celebrated with champagne at Thiel's successful investment in the Trump campaign. And while Peter Thiel may not be as explicit in his beliefs as someone like Balaji or Elon or even Mark Andreessen, Yarvin assured Milo Yiannopoulos over email that Peter Thiel was fully enlightened, just plays it very carefully. People in the New Right circles refer to Yarvin as Lord Yarvin or the Prophet. This isn't someone on the fringe of the movement. This is someone who is respected. Just like Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance is an avid reader and friend of Curtis Yarvin.
There's this guy Curtis Yarvin who's written about some of these things.
Vance not only name checks Curtis Yarvin, but he often uses his languages and repeats his ideas.
You actually popularized the term red pill in the political context, is that right?
Yeah, that's actually true.
Is this concept of red pilling.
Yarvin writes a lot of strange things, but one thing I'm particularly interested in is the blueprint he wrote for Donald Trump called The Butterfly Revolution. It's quite radical and another thing that would be easy to dismiss, but here's a clip of Yarvin talking about why he thinks it would be successful today.
Americans of 2024 are incredibly frivolous, incredibly ironic. It is the most ironic society in history. Like, imagine people trying to cope with a film like The Matrix or Inception in like 1960. Total frame breaking of this kind in some ways is actually easier than the sort of incremental political logic that people have employed in the past. They can sort of more easily imagine, oh man, it's all the Truman Show. In fact, they mostly already believe that it's all the Truman Show. They just don't understand the implications of that.
Something I find concerning is the many ways that the Butterfly Revolution perfectly aligns with Project 2025. Not a huge amount of the tech bros in Silicon Valley are religious, but that doesn't really stop these kinds of groups working together. Definitionally, both of these movements are fascistic. Fascism has never been a fully coherent ideology. That's one of the things that gives fascism its strength, its ability to bring together groups from different movements, all of whom see fascism as a viable mechanism to achieving their own program. And that's why some people say that fascism is always hyphenated. So it's always going to be tech fascism and Christian fascism, but these people can work together, and they do.
One of the things that evangelicals and libertarians should agree on is that the political order is not divinely ordained.
Amen.
Project 2025 has similar stated goals to the tech industry. In particular, the dismantling of the administrative state and the return of self-governance to the people. Project 2025 is made up of 4 pillars, and pillar 4 is the playbook. It is a transition plan for the president's eyes only. It will be rolled out upon the president's utterance of "So help me God." We don't know what's in this playbook, but given the alignment of talking points, key figures being involved in both, it wouldn't surprise me if it was similar to the Butterfly Revolution. And I think that's worth investigating. The Butterfly Revolution. Step 1. Campaign on autocracy.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, no, other than day one.
Yarvin says that Donald Trump should run on his autocratic ambition, but he should frame it as destroying an inefficient and unworkable system.
We are in a late Republican period. If we're going to push back against it, we have to get pretty wild and pretty far out there and go in directions that a lot of conservatives right now are uncomfortable with.
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Step 2. Purge the bureaucracy.
Remain bloodless if they allow it to be. I don't think that's like saying like, I will be going into your house and cooking on your stove, and it will be done peacefully as long as you let me break into your house and cook on your stove.
Curtis Yarvin refers to this as rage.
RAGE stands for retire all government employees.
And he has clearly influenced some very important people.
I think that what Trump should do, like if I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state.
And we know that Donald Trump would be open to rage because it sounds a lot like Schedule F, an executive order issued by Donald Trump in October of 2020. Schedule F would have essentially stripped protections from civil servants who didn't show enough loyalty to the president of the day, which is why Joe Biden rescinded this order the second he came into office in January of 2021. But Trump has said he plans to reinstate it.
First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively.
But how could you accomplish that so quickly? I mean, you need civil servants. Don't worry, Project 2025 is already on it. Pillar 2 of Project 2025 could be considered Maga LinkedIn. This platform is designed to pre-stream candidates for their loyalty and streamline the appointments process.
We talk about conservative warriors, but we want people who've been canceled, who've kind of figuratively given blood for the movement.
You can join it right now. Then pair that with Pillar 3, which is an online education platform known as the Presidential Administration Academy, and you have preemptively educated all future employees on what is expected of them from the conservative administration. Step 3. Ignore the courts. According to Yarvin, the president should simply state that he believes Madison v. Marbury was decided incorrectly, declare a state of emergency, and that way Supreme Court rulings would be merely advisory.
When the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
But thanks to recent Supreme Court decisions, he may not even need to do that.
The High Court has just issued one of its most consequential rulings in recent decades, a decision that not only affects the 2024 race for president following last week's contentious debate, but also the future of the presidency itself.
Trump v. United States has laid the groundwork to ensure that Donald Trump can ignore the court. Now, the president has absolute immunity for core official acts and presumptive immunity for all other official acts, a distinction that has not been clarified by the court, with only a few examples being provided and absolutely no guardrails to stop the misuse of this decision being put in place.
Today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone.
Step 4. Co-opt Congress. Yarvin suggests that Trump handpick candidates for every single seat, with the sole criterion being personal loyalty to him, because you can't have a parliamentary dictatorship if you don't have Congress. And while it seems like a big task, Yarvin assures us you only need a couple of $1 billion. I know some people with a few $1 billion. While Peter Thiel may have decided to sit this election cycle out, Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, and Brian Armstrong have not.
We got to get the congressmen elected, and we got to get the senators elected.
Out, Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen.
I don't really care much about the individuals, because individuals can literally just be every single person at the company donating a certain way, right? But is that true? The Coinbase organization contributed $46 million or $45 million to what would it have gone to, like super PACs or whatever? That's kind of wild. Jesus. But also for SpaceX, these individuals could be like super centered around like Elon Musk or something as well, right? Potentially, but jeez. This is
Brian Armstrong have not.
We got to get the congressmen elected, and we got to get the senators elected, because we can take the Senate pretty easily. And I think with our little secret, we're going to do really well with the House, right? Our little secret is having a big impact. He and I have a secret. We'll tell you what it is when the race is over.
Step 5. Centralized police and government powers. In this declared state of emergency, Yarvin suggests that Trump take direct control over all law enforcement agencies, federalize the National Guard, and effectively create a national police force that absorbs local bodies.
I think that actually the support of the Democratic public is a cipher. I think that actually all you need is command of the police.
This is so that a centralized police state can be created to back the power grab, and I'd say there's no way this could happen if Donald Trump hadn't tried to do it before. We know that he sent the National Guard during the George Floyd protests.
And that I was insistent on having the National Guard go in and do their work. It was like a miracle. It just, everything stopped.
And we know that he wanted to invoke the Insurrection Act.
If your state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
Now, there are, of course, protections within the law, posse comitatus, to stop a president from doing this, but Donald Trump has found a loophole before. I'm sure he'll find one again, especially in a state of emergency where he has absolute immunity for core official acts. Step 6. Shut down elite media and academic institutions. Yarvin has explicitly said that you cannot have a New York Times or a Harvard past April. He has a popular theory that true power in America is held by something he calls the cathedral, a term that should alert you whenever you hear it to this kind of thing. The cathedral is made up of elite media and academic institutions that, according to Yarvin...
I'm worried that they actually did do some actual voter fraud. They've accused them of doing everything they've done themselves so far. Again, I barely skimmed through the thousands of pages of court filings and everything else that was before listed over the voter fraud stuff that these guys were talking about. It's not here. I don't know how this open. But if what they were alleging, and it seems like there were software breaches, and if there is SQL database access given on all those election computers, I think that that's enough to ask for a recount in some of the states, or at least in some of the counties, just to make sure the recounted votes match up with the with what the machines tabulated. I think that's probably fair, and I don't even think conservatives should balk at that, considering how many fucking recounts did Trump get. And conservatives should always be okay with hand recounts, and if they're not, I think that would be a huge red flag. But I mean, they wouldn't be okay with it, of course, but.
And set the bounds of acceptable political discourse and distort reality to conform with their ideological beliefs.
So the cathedral is essentially performing the functions that a ministry of truth would perform in a classic Orwellian, environment, and it's performing the functions that a religion would in a classic theocracy.
Therefore, existing media and academic institutions need to be dismantled. Vance has been quite vocal about his disdain for academic institutions, despite graduating from Yale, and often repeats Yarvin's ideas in his own words.
So much of what we want to do in this movement in this country, I think, are fundamentally dependent on going through a set of very hostile institutions, specifically the universities, which control the knowledge in our society, which control what we call truth and what we call falsity, that provides research that gives credibility to some of the most ridiculous ideas that exist in our country. And so I think if any of us want to do the things that we want to do for our country and for the people who live in it, we have to honestly and aggressively attack the universities in this country.
Trump has said that if elected, he will reclaim the universities from the Marxist maniacs and lunatics who currently control them. How will he do this?
When I return to the White House, I will fire the radical left accreditors that have allowed our colleges to become dominated by Marxist maniacs and lunatics. We will then accept applications for new accreditors who will impose real standards on colleges.
In his Agenda 47, Trump has proposed a law to monitor universities for civil rights violations.
I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment.
That means he could essentially put an institution like Harvard out of business overnight. Elon Musk spends a significant portion of his time trying to undermine existing media in favor of his own platform X. Trump has absolutely no problem getting rid of legacy media. He has repeatedly talked about the government's licensing of broadcast airwaves, and about 15 times threatened to revoke licenses of existing stations.
And it's frankly disgusting the way the press is able to write whatever they want to write, and people should look into it.
Step 7. Turn out your people. Get your people out in the street to show their support for you anytime a government agency tries to obstruct you. Yarvin says it should be like the post-Soviet revolution. There should be masses of people. It should be joyful. And we know that Donald Trump has no problem in asking people to physically show their support for him.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength.
Once this butterfly revolution has taken place and the presidency looks more like a CEO or a king, the court of tech geniuses will have a much more realistic shot at getting what they want. One thing I can tell you about these Silicon Valley tech bros is that they are long-term thinkers. They are planning for years and years and years into the future. In case you needed more evidence that Silicon Valley and Project 2025 are in bed together, there is this strange tech conference called Reboot. And in September, at the last Reboot conference, which is all about creating a new reality, there was a special secret guest speaker. That secret guest speaker ended up being Kevin Roberts, who gave a speech titled Tech and the American Republic. The point of trying to put Vance in the VP position wasn't just to have him one heartbeat away from an old and ailing president. It was to introduce him to the world as the new blueprint of the Republican Party, to provide a strong option for a post-MAGA Republican Party, a party that will co-opt the government to destroy the country in order to allow self-described great men to install themselves as mini kings.
Wow.